Welcome to this brief training on program accounting, brought to you by the Utah Association of Public Charter Schools. In this training, we will cover the basics of what program accounting entails, why it is important, and provide some examples of program accounting. This is meant as an introductory course to assist you in your duties as board members of charter schools. First, let's define program accounting. Let's start with the word accounting. The official definition is accounting or accountancy is the measurement, processing, and communication of financial and non-financial information about economic entities. In lay terms, accounting is a system used mostly for sharing financial information about an organization. Now, let's add the program part on. A program is a plan of activities and procedures designed to accomplish a predetermined objective or set of objectives. The program dimension of accounting allows all costs, instructional and support, to be charged directly to the benefiting program. Additionally, use of program accounting allows simultaneous classification of support services both to programs and to functions. Think of a few programs in your school. Special education is a distinct program. When you receive teacher supply money, that's another program. Class size reduction is yet another. Programs have both revenue sides and expense sides and can be federal, state, or local. For example, IDEA is a federal program which brings money in via reimbursement after you pay someone to run the program, an allowable expense. The Library Book Fund is a state program on your allotment memo which can only be used for library resources. And if you sell a yearbook to the students, that is a local restricted program. But you must also buy the yearbooks from a company. That is an expense. Each of these revenue sources and associated expenses must be tracked to the correct program. Program accounting may appear to overcomplicate things, but if set up correctly, it simplifies things by providing answers to common finance questions, by providing detailed data, and by making that system meaningful across the public system. State policymakers use school and program financial data to ensure adequate and equitable funding of schools and programs, and for state accountability and assessment programs that relate school-level expenditures to student achievement scores or other effectiveness criteria. School boards and administrators require financial data for internal management and to respond to the requests of other data users. Parents and employees are often concerned with the financing of particular schools and programs. The media have a variety of interests, but frequently seek data regarding equitable funding of schools. We can think of program accounting as a collection of buckets or accounts, each with different rules, that stores different data sets and pieces of information. At each school, there will be a bucket for every revenue and expense type, listed as a number. The buckets are arranged by the kind of data they hold so that accountants can quickly find the right bucket in which to store the latest piece of data about a particular transaction. Since all schools use the same bucket system, comparison is easier. For example, school fees is local restricted income, and we must have unique buckets for each type. So if a student pays $50 for a yearbook, that revenue can only be spent on the yearbook expenses. If a student pays $20 for a chemistry class with a lab, that money can only be used in the chemistry class. It is important that we put the correct bucket so we know how much can be used for expenses toward that program. And as we put in more money or take more money out for each program, we always use the same bucket. Then at the end of the year, we can have a detailed information about each bucket and compare our bucket to another school's bucket, even across the nation and the world. Each month, the state prepares an allotment memo to show the school how much money the school will receive and in which program, think bucket, that money is allocated. Here's an actual example of the monthly allotment memo from Alpine School District. What are some things you notice related to program accounting? Name of the major program, specific program name and fiscal year designation, the program and revenue code number, and that each line has its own dollar amount tied to it. All programs have rules associated with the fund. Even unrestricted funds have rules. This example shows the revenue side of the program, the amount the state is going to push out to you listed by program, which bucket they pulled the funds from, and which bucket you should be placing the money. So the state's adult ed money should be placed in your adult ed bucket. You need to track revenue by its fund number. Does anyone know what a chart of accounts is? The chart of accounts is an organized, comprehensive, numerical list of all the buckets or programs the school uses to run its operations. The chart of accounts is used to categorize financial transactions. The chart of accounts segregates expenditures and revenues. For schools, State School Finance generates and maintains the chart of accounts. This information is found on the School Finance webpage. This is so all schools are categorizing using the same numerical system. You'll need to make sure that you set up your accounting system and financial reports in accordance with the state's chart of accounts. Just like the financial reports make up the pieces of the financial picture, there are three main components, or buckets, when sorting the finances in program accounting: program, object, and function. We will look at each separately. When you write your budget, you will have to be thinking by program. Like Alpine, if you have an adult ed program, you'll have to budget for adult ed. You will need to know what fund is providing the revenue and the rules associated with that fund. But you also need to be thinking about the expense side. Let's start with the program codes. Recall that a program is a plan of activities and procedures designed to accomplish a predetermined objective or a set of objectives. The program dimension of accounts provides the framework to classify expenditures for cost determination purposes, or how much is each part of the school costing to operate. So let's look at some program codes. This is just a small sample. And again, the state sets the numbers and descriptions. Everyone should be using the same chart of accounts. When I am paying a special education teacher, what program code would I most likely use when tracking wages? 1205. What about a first grade reading indoors teacher? 5201. How about when I pay a teacher to do behind the wheel instruction? 5610. So tracking by program is one part. The next part of the accounting piece is by object. Like we said, you must be thinking of programs and funds when budgeting, but most budgets are written by object code. Object codes describe the type of service or good acquired by an expenditure or what is being purchased by category. This is the piece with which you will be most familiar. So let's look at a couple of examples, but there are actually 8 different categories. What code signifies you are paying the school director? 115. And what code covers the Social Security payment? 220. And how about staff travel? 580. When we budget, we need to know which fund is paying for that object. So the state's professional staff fund may fully cover my director's salary, which is object 115. But that should be very clear from the beginning. And the state's library book fund should only be funding the 644 object. There is one more component: function. As a board, you will most likely not spend a lot of time working with function codes, but you should understand them. And your business manager should know them very well, as they must account for funds by function. Function codes describe the activity for which the good or service is acquired. This table lists some of the most common, but not all. For example, staff PD is object code 330, but what function did that professional development serve? Was it for a teacher to learn to be a better teacher, or was it for the counselor, or maybe it was for the admin? See, that changes how the transaction is coded. What code would we use if we were processing an invoice for food orders for the cafeteria? 3100. What about food for a teacher lunch during conferences? 2400. Because it is concerned with the functions at one school, not at a district level. Why not instruction? Because it's not concerned with classroom instructions. Let's put the 3 parts of the accounting together. Let's say Yearbooks R Us sent the school an invoice for the yearbooks. The business manager codes the invoice to 618.10.0250. This is because a yearbook is consumable and typically under $5,000. So we would work in Object Code 600 supplies. 618 is not on the state's chart of accounts, but that's okay because as long as we do not go less restrictive than the state, we can go tighter. We selected function 10 for instruction. This is because yearbook is a class as well as a product, and then program 0250 for the state's designation of yearbook class. Let's look at another example. Textbooks RS sent the school an invoice for textbooks. The business manager codes the invoice to 641.10.0005. This is 641. It's specific for tangible textbooks used in classroom instruction. Function 10 and then part of the regular basic school program. All students can use that supply. I can go into more detail than USBE requires and code by class, but I'm not required to do so. As long as I'm coding at the minimum level established, I'm okay. In this case, the 005 is enough, but be consistent in your coding choices. One final example, the driver's ed teacher submits a time card for behind the wheel instruction. The business manager codes the payroll to 131.10.5610. I am sure you're already seeing 131 as the object for salaries paid to the licensed teachers, 10 is the function for instruction, and 5610 is the state designated program for behind the wheel. Very good. Can you see how program accounting makes your data accounting so rich? You can tell where every dollar was spent and what every program cost you, as well as whether you follow the rules associated with that fund. Let's talk quickly about restrictions. Most, and most means pretty much all programs, are restricted. Most programs have rules and allowable costs. Like we said, if a student pays $50 for a yearbook, that is restricted to yearbook. If they pay a $10 science lab fee, that $10 is restricted to that class. One of the state's restricted programs is classroom supply money. This money is to be used for supplies in a classroom and for field trips. Pop quiz. Which of the following receipts or invoices can be coded to the teacher supply program? A, yep, field trip expenses are allowed. B, yes, bulletin board decorations are classroom materials. C, no, this might be a field trip for the teacher, but sorry, it doesn't count. D, yes, of course books for the classroom would count. E, no, and you can't use library money either, sorry. Buy them for the library with library funds and check the books out to the office. Although each role, board, admin, and business office, has a distinct responsibility, they should also work with the other roles in a complementary fashion to ensure the greatest success. Let's look at each role's main responsibility. Let's start with the board's role. Monthly, your board should review the school's financials, including a verification of programs. You want to ensure that rules of each program are being followed. This is probably not necessary for every program every month, but for major programs like IDEA, you'll want to make sure your budget and expenses follow the rules. Monthly financials should review your budget to actuals with the percent of change displayed for all budget categories approved. At least semi-annually, you'll want to do a detailed budget review and consider reapproving an adjusted budget. Annually, you'll need to approve a final budget for the year and budget for the upcoming year. With the annual budget, you'll want to evaluate policy for compliance with state and federal rules and to ensure staff are following policy as approved. You will also need to set an annual fee schedule no later than April 1st of each year. This fee schedule must be based on program accounting. There will be more on fees and budgeting later, but keep in mind you need to know the rules of the funds and ensure the school is following those rules. Quick pro tip, ask questions and get data. So what is the admin's role then? Knowing and following the budget. The administrator should know how much is approved in each program and stick to that budget. Variances should be kept to a minimum and should be exceptions, not the rule. If there are going to be large changes to the budget, it is best to take those changes to the board ahead of time, if possible. If that's not possible, the board should be notified as quickly after as it is reasonable. The admin should practice asking, is it in the budget? Although it can seem tedious, the admin should approve expenses to be paid as they come in. They should make sure the internal controls set up to protect the school are being used. and they should, at a minimum, initial invoices to be paid. Ensuring compliance with policy and rule is a major role of the administrator. They will know the rules best and should expect compliance by other parties and themselves. Because of their knowledge and charge to fulfill the board's mission, they should provide data and make suggestions for program and budgeting decisions. What is the business office responsible for? Generally, the business office is going to receive the budget, code transactions against the state's chart of accounts and within budget, and they should know how much is in each program, and then prepare the financials for review. They should feel comfortable advising the admin and board based on best practices and state requirements. Let's look at an example. Class size reduction. This money is intended to reduce the size of classes or maintain smaller classes in grades kindergarten through 8. Restrictions: 50% must be spent on reducing class size in grades K through 2, with an emphasis on improving student reading skills. On your annual allotment, you see that fiscal year 20, you'll be receiving $84,640.43 paid out at $7,047.77 a month. Let's look at who does what. So what does the board do? They should approve a budget based on the $84,000, most likely in the way the director suggests, based on school need and presented data. This is usually added to unrestricted money. 50% of the money must, but 100% can, be used in lower grades. The board should also review financials monthly, of which this program should be included, and adjust the budget as needed. They will then adopt a final budget at the year end. An example may be that $84,000 is budgeted for either a school-wide reading specialist or classroom teacher in the largest grade and 3 aides in grades K through 2. The director is authorized by the board to make that amount work. Looking at school-wide data and needs, the admin will make a funding recommendation to the board, such as the 3 reading aides or being able to hire a classroom teacher or specialist. Once approved, they will follow the budget. Throughout the year, they will stay current on expenses in the program. Maybe the school needs to improve reading in 6th grade and reduce those class sizes. Can you use this money here? Yes, just less than 50%. So maybe you want to bring in 3 aides and then also add another 6th grade teacher. Let's say $43,000 is being used to hire 3 aides in the younger grades and $41,000 for a 6th grade teacher. This is in accordance with the budget and the plan. You're good. Business manager? This person makes sure everything is coded correctly. They will also report on the program on monthly financials and make sure reports to the state are accurate. In our example, they will set the wages to the correct code so that when the payroll is paid each month, the class size reduction program is charged. If the business office sets up the chart of accounts correctly and is consistent with coding per the state's chart, providing reports is fairly quick and easy. We have learned a lot in a short amount of time. We have learned that programs have revenue and expenses and that they can be from local, state, or federal sources. We covered the reason for program accounting, as well as the parts of the chart of account which make up program accounting. We briefly discussed restrictions and then wrapped up with the roles people play in program accounting. We hope this helps you in your role as a charter board member and wish you all the best in governing. This training was brought to you by a grant from the Utah State Charter School Board.